So, as we all know by now, that right wing MAGA representative, speaker, you know, personality, Charlie Kirk, was shot and killed yesterday out in Utah at a function he was having on a college campus out in Utah, as I said. I wasn't the biggest fan of his. I would like to think if anybody's familiar with him and his talking points for obvious reasons, right? The funny thing is, literally, I believe like last week or so, I was, talking with a coworker. I had just seen a video of his popped up in my timeline. And again, once again, like I said, there's talking points. I don't agree with this. So I was like, man, here he goes again with this nonsense. And I said to my coworker, I said, the thing with these type of people is the best way to deal with them is to just ignore them. I don't know why people bother showing up to his things trying to debate him, because he's obviously somebody with a very deliberate and purposeful agenda, which lines his pockets with money. So therefore, nothing you say to him, no amount of facts or anything you bring to him, is going to change anything he has to say or any way he thinks. It doesn't matter, because his whole that all that he does and that he talk, again, was his money maker. He made money off that. That was his niche. So he's never going to change that, right? And here we are. Fast forward to, dang, I guess somebody chose not to ignore for whatever reasons, and now he's not here. And of course, all the rhetoric is out there. Everybody's coming out with their reasons. You got a lot of right wing MAGA supporters who's talking about we're going to war. This is war, which I think is premature to do, because again, as far as we know, there's been no real arrest for a shooter. So we have no real motive or reason why this happened. So they'll automatically jump to the idea that this is some type of liberal assassination thing, and we got to go to war, and they're going to go to war with liberal people and maybe try to target liberal content creators is stupid. And then you had your man on Fox News less than an hour after Kirk was shot, going on there once again, feeding this thing, talking about they are at war with us. This is after war. Again, who's they and who's we? That's very irresponsible as a person and be as a news network to allow something like that to happen. Because what you're doing is, again, you're feeding the fuel for people in the street to go take actions based off something they don't know why they're doing it, because we have no idea why it happened. You can make assumptions, but we don't know why it happened, right? But here is a perspective I would like to put out there that I don't think any people are really touching on, right? Because right now they're going with the whole this is some liberal attack thing, so we got to do. But here's the perspective. Let's look at a few factors, right? One, this happened in Utah, which happens to be one of the whitest places in the country, right? Number two, this happened in Utah, which happens to be one of the most, it's a red state, it's one of the most Republican states in the country. Number three, this happened in Utah, which Trump won very handily. He won all the electoral votes from that, maybe 6 or 8, whatever it was. He won all the electoral votes. So that had to be overwhelmingly MAGA country, right? So with those three factors in mind. Oh, and factor number 4, before I forget, this happened in Utah, which is predominantly white. I believe it's about 75 to 80% of the population identifies non-Hispanic white. So again, this is one of the most whitest places in the country. So, number 1, 9 times out of 10, it wasn't a black person that shot this man. This is white on white crime, right? Number 2, 9 times out of 10, the person that shot him was a registered Republican. Number 3, here's an idea. Maybe he was shot by someone who was a disgruntled, disenfranchised, and disenchanted MAGA person who, as of late, because they didn't realize what they were voting for, because they voted with their bigotry and these other things that Trump was dog whistling to in his campaigns, right? They wasn't getting what they thought they voted for. The leopards, as they say, have been eating their face, right? And maybe they lost some significant monies through 401ks or pensions. Maybe they had some businesses go under and get fucked over behind Trump policies and tariffs and things. Maybe it was somebody that, because again, all across the country, there's a whole bunch of farmers that's right now begging Trump to help them because again, they voted for him, but now because of his things, his agendas, it's that they're losing their farms and their farmland, they're losing their livelihoods and stuff like that. It could be someone that was under one of those duresses, right? That felt like, again, this is not what I voted for, this is what I wanted, I'm angry, I'm disgruntled, I want to lash out at MAGA somehow. I can't get to Trump, I can't get to these people. But here's someone who's coming to my town, that's coming to my area, who happens to be a proud, loud, thumping, MAGA wave, flag waver. This is a big face of MAGA. Been stood up there next to Trump. He praises Trump every chance he gets. He's always supporting Trump. Here's somebody that I might be able to take a crack at. So they decided to take that crack. That's just something to think about before we jump to this agenda of, there was some liberal attack on the Republican, on the right wing, on MAGA. Before we jump, and then even before we try to make it, because again, 9 times out of 10, behind this liberal thing, people of color and stuff like that, and people's businesses of color and things like that could begin to be attacked. So because, like I said, we got the Fox guy jumping out there declaring war. We got people on the internet just jumping out there declaring war on liberalism, on liberal people, on liberals, or this is liberals against war. And of course, people of color are usually, regardless before they know or not, labeled, they must be liberal because he's black, or because he's whatever minority, they must be liberal. You know what I'm saying? So that could happen. So before we go with that, let's look at that, like I just said. Let's look at that theory. It could be a disgruntled MAGA that took him out. But again, we won't know until they actually get an arrest and we see what develops. There's another theory out there that somebody gave to, but I'm not going to put that out there right now. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But, listen, there's a lot of other things going on that would have been nice to have a distraction from right about now, if you know what I mean. And we need to find a way to A, distract from this, and B, maybe there's another part of an agenda they want to do, but they needed an excuse, they needed a jump off point to do them, to set them in motion. And hey, listen, we need a little land. But that's a different conversation, all right? So listen, just think about that, what I said, man. Just let that marinate, get this around, like and share. Put this out there. Let's get this out there, because, you got to really think about that, right? But, otherwise, listen, let this be a cautionary tale, because this man, Charlie Kirk, said a lot of things that A, didn't age well, get killed, and B, there's a lot of irony, you know what I'm saying? So let this be a cautionary tale. Be mindful what you're putting out there into the universe. Because as a wise man, Malcolm X once said, the chickens just might come home to roost.